Welcome back. My name is Amy McInnes. This is The Art of Plenty. And the last few episodes, we've been talking about anxiety. This is something that is so close to me because I didn't even realize it when I was little. I definitely struggled with anxiety. I had to work through some major anxiety disorders when I was in my early 20s. And in my professional career, I have definitely noticed how many people experience anxiety, and it can be absolutely crippling. It's one of those things that eats away and erodes a person's sense of well-being. And the other thing about it is it's manageable. We cannot eliminate the stressors in our life, but we can most certainly manage the way that we respond to the stressors. That is what we're diving into today, is ways that we can look at anxiety and decrease our experience of anxiety. So stick around, because that's what we're getting into. I am a mother of 5. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a registered clinical counselor. I'm a person who has both experienced anxiety and treated anxiety in my career. Today, this is a tricky one because if you have my stress freebie, where we show the teeter-totter, where there are things that you can do that increase your peace, and when you do that, your anxiety automatically drops. Or there are things that you can do to actually drop your anxiety. Regardless of what side of the teeter-totter you work on, increasing peace, decreasing anxiety, the result is the same. The peace increases and anxiety decreases. Opposite sides of the coin. But we can still have experiences where we have peace and anxiety happening at the same time in ourselves. So we can feel very peaceful, for example, about our marriage or our relationship with our significant other, and very anxious about what's happening with our child or our relationship with our parents. So we often carry both of these experiences in ourselves at once. And ultimately, the goal that I like to work towards with anxiety is get rid of it, reduce it, so that it's not impacting you. And I just want to say, the skills and the strategies that I've been sharing with you are things that are helpful for people that are experiencing anxiety, but we're not specifically talking about clinical disorders. So everyone experiences anxiety at some different level, and the more severe the anxiety, the more likely it is that people will need professional help in order to work through it, overcome it. And I would encourage you, if you feel like you can't get ahead of this thing, that this beast is weighing you down, reach out. Find someone in your home community that is skilled at working with anxiety, because there are so many things that you can do. There are so many ways that you can experience greater freedom in your life, because anxiety sucks. And the sooner you can start working at it, the sooner you start to see that light, the sooner you start to feel light. Okay, so we are talking about strategies when your anxiety is high. So these are things in the moment when you have that flush of anxiety and your heart rate's going up, or you're feeling more tense, or you can't catch your breath, or your stomach's doing flips, or you're so irritable that you feel like if anybody talks to you, you're going to rip their head off. We're talking about in the moment when the anxiety is running the show. Now, the first thing to do is you need to take stock. You need to have an understanding of what is going on. What does anxiety feel like in your body? Because people carry it totally different. There is an incredible list of responses that we have to stress, because Let me differentiate this for you if you haven't been listening along. Stress is the part that comes from the outside. So we all have these stressors, things that are impacting us that are coming up. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. We never escape them. We will always have stressors in our life. The way we respond to those stressors are sometimes an anxious response. And we can continue to have anxiety even when the stressor isn't really a stressor. And even when it doesn't even exist anymore, we can continue to feel anxious. It's important to understand what is your behavioral response, what is your emotional response, and what is your physical response. I have a handout that I don't even know where I got it, but it's not mine. It's an accumulation of a bunch of different articles and a bunch of different things where we've put together this list of different physiological, mental, behavioral responses to stress. If you would like to get your hands on that sheet, you got to go to the show notes. In the description is a way that you can access this one pager. It's a great tool because in order to understand what you're working at, it's good to know what is this experiencing like in my body. And here is the tricky part. There are things in there that are physiological responses to stress, that are anxious responses, but they're also the same responses that you could have to another thing that may be completely unrelated to anxiety. Here is an example. Headaches. Headaches can be a symptom of anxiety. It can be a reaction to a stressor. You get a headache. It's part of an anxious response. That's not the only thing that causes headaches. So does dehydration, which I guess you could say that the stress on your body is that you don't have enough water, so then the reaction. But I'm not talking about it in that term. I'm talking about that you can get a headache from not being hydrated. You can also get a headache that is simply connected to feeling stressed out and feeling anxious. You can have all sorts of digestive tract issues going on where you can eat bad food and you can be vomiting and running to the bathroom. And it's nothing to do with anxiety. It's simply that you ate something that you shouldn't have ate and your body's like, nope, get this out. Or you can eat perfectly fine and the way that your body is responding to stress, the way that you are reacting anxiously is that your gut gets all twisted and you're vomiting or you're running to the bathroom. So filling out this sheet can be tricky because not everything on there is going to resonate, and it's up to you to figure out what is my anxious response? What happens in my body when I actually feel anxious? And the reason why you want to know is if you can clue in what's going on, if you can tune in to your body, to your emotions, to your thought processes, then you are more able to implement strategies to drop that anxiety level. That heightened awareness enables you to implement things that are going to help you increase your peace, reduce your anxiety, and be free, to be hopeful, to feel light. And because we experience it differently, it's up to you to figure it out for yourself. And there are many people that can help you with this if you just feeling like you need that kind of support. Okay, so the list of skills that I have for you today are things that I have actually done. I am not giving you a list of things to reduce anxiety that I have not implemented myself. However, this is not exhaustive. You can go onto Google and probably find another 50 things that you could do to decrease your anxiety. But the part about this is that to do this, you actually have to consistently implement these. And these things are things that you are going to have to practice. If you are not comfortable using different breathing strategies, when you get into an anxious situation, it is difficult to access that cognitive, creative brain function. We have to rely on habits that we've put in place to drop our anxiety level in the moment. And that's why we practice these things. It's like this. You can't say to a kid who's feeling extremely anxious to calm down. They don't get it. That words calm down doesn't mean anything. It's not specific enough, and they don't know how to do it, because if they knew how to do it, they would be doing that, because people don't want to feel that way. So instead, with kids, when they're feeling all worked up, you say things like, breathe with me. And you demonstrate the inhale and the hold of the breath and demonstrate the exhale. And then kids follow along with you. And when they're little, really, you can pull them into your chest and exaggerate your breathing. And what happens is the kid will start to mimic your breath. Just breathe. And then you say things like, we're working at getting calm. You're going to know you're calm because your breathing's going to change. So you're teaching them and talking to them, but you're also demonstrating it and doing it with them. So some of these strategies, you have to be the parent for yourself, or that kid in you that's feeling worked up and anxious and can't calm down. You also have to be the parent. And the way you do that is if you practice these techniques, if you practice these strategies when you're not feeling anxious, you'll be more able to access them when you are. They also do not necessarily work instantaneously. They will take time, so you just keep doing them. There's this recipe of repetition that makes them successful. Okay, here's the list. Screen time. Number one thing on my list. Not that it's the most important thing or the thing that you should do first, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm thinking, oh, I'm anxious. If you limit your screen time, your anxiety levels will decrease. Try it out. See, just notice, does it make a difference? There's something, and I don't know what it is, but here's my guess. On our phones, it's super stimulating. It's like you can get keyed up. Not everything on screens is going to do that, but a lot of the scrolling, a lot of the quick changes, those things are kind of like upping the ante. And when you're feeling anxious, things are kind of already upped. So you don't want to do things that continue to bring that up. It's the same thing like caffeine. Caffeine is one of those things. Not everybody experiences it this way, I'm sure. But if I eat a lot of sugar, or if I eat chocolate, or I have caffeine, my system kind of like spikes up. And I even can get gut aches. And if I'm already anxious, I don't drink coffee. And if I'm already anxious, I avoid chocolate, because I don't want to add that physiological response that mimics my anxiety response. So that was my second thing. Watch what you're eating. If you are already feeling anxious, don't add foods that increase or mimic that experience of anxiety in your body. Again, you have to know for yourself, what does that feel like? What happens when I eat chocolate? What happens when I eat a lot of sugar? What happens when I drink alcohol? What happens when I eat or drink these specific foods in my body? And if you notice that it mimics anything that you feel when you're feeling anxious or stressed or strained, try not to eat those foods when you're already keyed up and experiencing anxiety. The next piece is breathing. I'm telling you, breathing keeps me alive. It's kept me managing when my anxiety gets high. And it's beautiful because you can do it anywhere. And you don't just have to do this one when you're experiencing anxiety. When you're feeling good and relatively relaxed, it's something that you can do that still just increases your peace further. But in the moment when you're feeling anxious, just breathe. And if your anxiety is building, sometimes the best thing to do is distract yourself from it. Distract yourself from the thoughts. Think of something else. Look at something else. Draw your attention to something in the present. Distracting isn't something that's going to work forever, But sometimes in the moment, we just need to calm down. And the way to do that is to distract ourselves from whatever the situation is that's building the anxiety. Because working on it from a cognitive perspective is really difficult if the emotions and everything is involved. You almost have to get to a calm state before you can really start to pull it apart about what is at the base of the anxiety. So in the moment of anxiety, just distract yourself. One of the ways that I do that is by this analogy that I use called surfing the wave. Now, surfing the wave is its own strategy because I draw my attention to the fact that things are going to shift. Just get through this. Sometimes I think, in 24 hours, I'm going to know exactly how this turned out. When I've prepared for surgery, that's one of the thoughts that I have. So rather than getting worked up, I've thought to myself, you know what? 24 hours, I'm going to know. A week from now, I'm going to be feeling so much better. And so right now, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to ride the wave, and I recognize that there isn't anything that I necessarily need to do. I've already caught the wave. Just ride it out. And I mean, it is a practice that involves understanding how anxiety runs. But I find in my own life that it's a bit of a cyclical thing. So it'll increase and then it'll subside, and then it'll increase and then it'll subside. And knowing that it comes in that almost like a wave, I know that if I just focus on riding the wave, there's going to be times when it subsides. So again, these strategies are for in that moment of feeling extremely anxious. The other piece, or the next thing, is to ground yourself in the present. What can you focus on in your world? What can you look at? And this goes hand in hand with distracting, because it's easy to distract ourselves by things that are right in front of us, things that are tangible. Like, oh, this water is so cold and refreshing as it goes down my throat. Or, oh, look at how bright the grass is today. Or, wow, watch that tree blow in the wind. Or, oh, I've never noticed that my partner's eyes have just a little bit of gray on that one part. Focus on something right in front of you. Draw your attention towards it. That's what it means to ground yourself in the present. Another piece is to find something that's positive. And this fits with the distraction piece. This fits with grounding yourself in the present. But the idea behind this one is that even when the most terrible, horrible things are going on, there's often things that are also happening at the same time that are beautiful. I call this finding the gold in the moment. Because we can all have the Midas touch. We can all look at our environments, see our lives, and find something that we can hold on to that can become our gold. The thing that is full of light. The thing that is of beauty. Something that we can hold on to as, you know what? Even though all of this is wrong, there's still this one piece that is right. And it takes effort to find those things, and it takes effort to hold those things. And it doesn't mean that you're pretending the bad doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that you're saying that this isn't your reality. It's just saying that there's more to my reality than this darkness. I recorded an episode a few weeks ago about my personal experience with anxiety and with an anxiety disorder that I had in my 20s. It was very difficult to share it because it's almost embarrassing, and it also is awful. And I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to think about how difficult it was to go through that. And how much anxiety stole from my life, not just from my joy, not just from my peace, but there were things that I didn't do because of how anxious I was feeling. And I haven't, at this stage, released that episode yet because that felt too hard to do. And so when I was mulling that over, when I was thinking about why haven't I shared this? I was realizing that there's more to the story. There's more to the story than saying, this was awful and this is how I overcame it. Because we need to hear about other people's victories, but we also need to have strategies. We need to know that there are things that we can do. Because when you implement things to reduce your anxiety or to increase your peace, and it starts to work, it builds up confidence. And that confidence grows hope that you can do more things, that you can have more freedom. So before releasing that episode, I wanted to spend time diving into this topic so that there are other people that can experience the same freedom that I experienced. And that's why I'm sharing this with you today. If you are a person and you know that anxiety is getting the better of you, please reach out to someone. This episode today is not a substitute for professional help. It is not professional advice. It's simply informative and entertainment. Because there's something different when you're able to share what's going on in your life with somebody who can help you. It's a different process when you work with someone to overcome. So I want to encourage you, if that's you, if you know in your spirit, if you know in your bones that you need help, please reach out to someone to get the help that you need. And if this episode has met you where you are at, I would love it if you rated, share a comment, subscribe. When you do that, it helps me to know that this content is hitting the mark, and it also helps me to continue to create content that will resonate with people. I do this because I feel like my purpose is to share my experiences and my stories so that other people can have a richer life and live the life that they were meant to, the life that they were called to. My name is Amy McInnes, and this is The Art of Plenty.